Okay, so this is the PBD podcast, Sam Sorbo and Destiny, episode 220. Let's get into it.
Did you ever think you would make it? I feel I'm so close, I could taste sweet victory. I know this life meant for me. Yeah, why would you bet on Goliath when we got Bet David? Valuetainment, giving values contagious. This world of entrepreneurs, we get no value to haters. How they run, homie, look what I become. I'm the one.
Cheers.
Okay, so today's
So I'm sorry, let me give you a little bit of context on who he is. I believe he sold an insurance company that he had for multi-million dollars. Very knowledgeable businessman. Obviously, he's the host of this podcast, but he's got a lot of different things going on. So this guy knows what he's talking about when it comes to a lot of topics. But I think I would consider him a very good businessman. I don't know much about Sam Sorbo. He's got a co-host that's kind of like, I don't know, but and then I know a lot about Destiny.
Wait, so this is not Sam Sorbo though?
This is not his name. It's PBD stands for Patrick Bet David.
Oh, that's him.
That's him.
Okay.
Yeah.
the last podcast of the year, but at the same time, it's going to be very. I think we can use weird, strange, awesome. I have a feeling it's going to be a very, very good podcast.
Yeah.
It was arranged last minute because of flight challenges yesterday with our buddy coming in from LA. Southwest, he had some issues. When I asked Rob gave me a look. I'm like, yep, he had flight issues. But we have Sam Sorbo, which is great to have you here.
Thank you.
On the podcast. And we had your husband, Kevin, here on. And I want
Hercules.
to say, yeah.
Hercules.
I mean, come
Just
on.
call me Hercules.
Wow.
Hercules and
Hercumore.
Hercules. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll take
All
it.
right.
So we have Sam here. She's got some strong opinions, and we'll learn a little bit about her, and then we'll get into that as well. And then we also have Destiny, Steven, or should I say Steven, a.k.a. Destiny.
Yeah, that works.
Here's with us as well. He's been known as, some say he's the Ben Shapiro of the progressives. Very
Wow.
opinionated.
Is that what they
strong,
say?
witty, fast, likes debates. He has opinions for everything he says, which is great. And Destiny, why don't you tell everybody about your hair today? There's a special reason for your hair today.
There is. I would like to say, though, I consider Ben Shapiro to be the destiny of the writer.
Well played.
I did a charity event like fucking 3 years ago, I think, and I told them I'd dye my hair blue, and I didn't think they'd hit the goal, and they did. So I finally dyed my hair like I think a month ago in Georgia. So
How do you like it?
it's a lot of work.
Really?
What's the charity?
I don't even remember. It was like 3 years ago, but we were doing a fundraiser, and one of the goals was like, if you raise like so much money, then I promise I'll dye my hair blue, and then
Usually, when you do these types of bets or charitable type fundraisers, it's within a fiscal year.
Yeah.
They're hitting you back 3 years later. Hey, by the way,
Respect for them.
I know you don't even remember what
How long do you have to
agreed
keep the hair?
Well, I did it. The problem is that like now, if I want to get rid of it, I think I have to shave it all off. So I might wait for the bottom part to grow out a little bit more. And
Hasn't yet the black.
the
bottom hasn't
brown,
grown yet?
yeah, it's a little bit, but we'll see.
Because the problem with the blue is it fades and then it turns like a swamp color, right?
Well, it hasn't done that yet. So.
Oh, okay.
So what we're trying to do here is get rid of the swamp. But
Yeah.
So look, what we want to do today, our audience likes a good banter debate, respectfully, but going back and forth. If you don't mind taking a quick second and just kind of giving your background, Sam. Obviously, I have your intro, I have your whole background here, but if you don't mind with the audience, so they know who you are and what you've done in the past.
Sure. I came out of film. I did go to Duke University, which
I saw that.
studied biomedical engineering, but and of course Harvard is the Duke of the North if we're going to be playing that game. But I left school to pursue acting. I did modeling for many years also, and
Is Duke considered a more prestigious school than Harvard? I think that's what she was getting at there.
No, I mean it's definitely Ivy League.
Sure.
I just don't know its ranking.
So I'm also a filmmaker. I had 3 children, and I realized that the school wasn't getting the job done. And so I pulled my kids out of school and I started homeschooling them. And I'd love to say that I never looked back. I did. I put them back in school for about 6 weeks once. and that was an enormous mistake. And so now I advocate for just full sale taking your children out of school, because
Awesome.
school is not education.
Well, we'll definitely talk about that. And I know you got a book on that, which we'll get to as well. Destiny, if you don't mind taking a moment, share with the audience your background.
Well, geez, I went to the prestigious University of Nebraska at Omaha. I
There
did
you go.
music for 3 years and then dropped out because I was working too much. I do politics online. People would call me progressive. I'm either very far left if you're a conservative, or I'm not far left enough if you're like a super progressive. I guess I'm like a modern kind of like Bill Maher, where there's like a lot of progressive values that I believe in, but some people take it way too far. And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Dustin, share some of them with us. Like yesterday, we had Kyle Kolinsky here, and I'm sure you know who Kyle is. We had a good time with them.
You're not a Kyle guy? You don't like that guy?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so tell us
Yeah.
what you stand for. What are some of the things you stand for?
I think broadly speaking, the things that I talk about are the
Yeah.
importance of the establishments that are around us, the institutions that exist, why they're important, why they're worth protecting. I try to show that you can be critical of them without thinking that like all of them have to be toppled and overturned. That we can, for instance, like criticize things like the FDA without saying that like COVID vaccines are causing our hearts to explode, or we can be critical of basically just holding institutions accountable without saying we have to topple the whole system. I think that the political paradigm in the country right now is very much like populist versus anti-populist. I'm very much like an institutional anti-populist kind of guy.
Can you also
I like that take there. Critical of the establishment without toppling over the system.
Mm-hmm.
I think they kind of get into this later, but there's a lot of people out there that are critical of certain establishments or certain types of or certain sectors of the government.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of like trying to find a way to make it better, make it more productive, make it more fair, make it more safe, they just want to say, F it, get rid of it.
Oh, like anti-establishment.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that I'm anti-establishment.
No, not by any
I
means.
would never say like defund the police or,
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of the FBI, get rid of the CDC, get rid of World Health Organization.
Mm-hmm.
But we definitely need to be more critical of it, or as critical as we can be.
Yeah, I mean, we have every right to question maybe certain methods or certain practices, but we're not saying just nuke it all and get rid of it.
Yeah, I'm
you
not
know?
sure I'm not sure if people say that because they want to just like get a reaction, or if they actually believe that that's the only solution. What do you think?
I mean, from what I've heard, there's there these conspiracy theories, which kind of I think make it anti-establishment.
Mhm.
And so at that point, I don't know if the rhetoric is like they're meant to destroy us and that's what they're structured to do, and let's just get rid of it. And that's kind of the rhetoric.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I've heard that a lot.
mm-hmm.
to share how you came about your philosophies today? Because I do know, there's a range of, you went through the Iran phase, you went through the Ron Paul phase, you went through the conservative phase. Kind of give a little bit about the background.
Yeah, I guess speed running it. I grew up. Is neocon a slur for Republicans? Do they not like that?
They do not like that.
Okay. I grew up a Bush Republican, I guess.
That's how you
wow.
grow. Well, in
I was
Nebraska.
going to say you're sort of conservative. You're about conserving the institutions without toppling them. That's kind of conservative.
Sure, if we want to call that conservative now, but then conservatives aren't conservative because they seem like they want to destroy everything. So
Fair enough.
yeah, I grew up. My
Kind of
mom.
weird.
My mom is Cuban, so Cubans are very conservative. I grew up in a very conservative household. Both my parents were Air Force. I also went to Catholic school, so grew up very religious, very Catholic. Around 16, 17, 15, 16, I kind of became atheist, had my little Ayn Rand phase, our little Atlas Shrugged anthem. And then from there, I was a big Ron Paul fan in 2008. I got into streaming around 2010. And then from there, I've kind of slowly become more left as I've earned more money and I've seen how unfair the world was prior to
As
being
you've
very
earned
wealthy.
more money, you've
Wow.
gone further left. A lot of times you go further right when you start making more money. Leave me alone. Let me do my thing. Capitalism, entrepreneurship. Why would you go further left as you started making more money?
I think the largest thing I saw was viewing life through the lens of my kid seemed really unfair to the other children around him.
You have a kid.
Yeah, 11 years
Okay.
old. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So like my ability to just buy a house in the best school district, send my kid to wherever he needs to go to school, make sure that he has all the things that he needs. Like these are all things that I love him to death, but he hasn't earned any of these, right? From birth, he hasn't worked yet, doesn't do his chores all the time, but like the fact that I can provide so much for him and gave him such a head start compared to other people When I see this guy go to, kindergarten, first grade, and they all got their own like laptops and iPads assigned to them, I'm like Jesus. And then you've got kids in, you've got schools in Omaha that can barely afford computers for like their computer room. Starting to see things through that lens, and then also comparing like the things in my life post becoming wealthy to pre becoming wealthy. Like every interaction with a police officer before becoming wealthy is like the end of your fucking life, because like a speeding ticket is setting you back like 2 months if you pop a wheel, or you break a wheel, you pop a tire. Anybody that drives in Omaha knows that Interstate 80, all these potholes will like destroy your life. Seeing how easy like everything became in life after earning money is like, I don't know, it changed my perspective on a lot of things.
So why'd you move to Florida?
Originally, I moved from Omaha to California about 4 years ago. I lived in California for about 3 years. I had kind of friends.
I've heard Patrick Bet David. I'm just gonna say
Okay.
PBD asked this question before because he's conservative. I think he votes Republican.
Okay.
And he doesn't want like, liberals voting Democrat in Florida, potentially swaying the victory to a Democrat.
He's said that
official. I don't think he's like specifically said that, but I'm pretty sure I've heard him push the topic of like, Florida's red.
Let's keep it red.
Yeah, let's keep it red type of thing. Yeah.
Florida's been blue in the past.
When?
Or maybe we just had a blue governor a few times.
There, and then I've got more friends in Miami, so eventually I moved from California to Miami to join those friends here.
Why save that taxes though? And if you really want to give the money back, isn't it a better idea to live in California or New York where you pay more taxes?
I don't really care much about taxes.
Yeah.
There are certain social programs that I would want funded, and if you have to raise taxes to fund those, that's fine. But I don't think there's anything like intrinsically good about paying taxes or not paying taxes. It's just a matter of whether or not the programs that you want are getting funded, I guess.
So you don't see anything intrinsically good whether you pay taxes or you don't pay taxes.
Not really.
So unpack that. What do you mean by that?
I feel like sorry, let me know if I'm rambling too much, but oftentimes people will get attached to processes instead of outcomes.
Yeah.
Right. So a really good example might be housing people, right? We want houses for more people, but people will look at a process like we'll say rent control, and that becomes inexorably tied to the outcome, where it's if you support rent control, you support housing people. If you're opposed to rent control, you're opposed to housing people. But sometimes that process is not like a good process. So it's hard for people to back away from it because in their mind, they're like, you have to support this thing. It's like, well, it's not even getting us to our end goal. And I view taxation the same way. Taxation is like a tool. It's not good or bad to pay taxes or not pay taxes. It's just like a tool that we use to fund the government. And then the real fight should be, what do we want the government to be doing? And then assuming that we've got like these services, conservatives tend to want less, liberals or left-leaning people tend to want more. Considering the services that we've got provided by the government, we raise enough money in taxes to fund those services. That's how I view it. There's not like a.
So where do you think we're wasting money? Where do you think we should be investing more money? Like, where do you think taxes should go to? Where are we wasting it?
Where are we wasting it? Man, I don't know. There's probably a ton of different areas. I imagine that everybody's wasting money everywhere. I feel like everybody always does that. I'm going to go line by line. And then when they get in office, they're like, no, fuck that. In terms of where we should invest, I'm big in like preventative stuff or like investing for the future. So I think big investments in education, I think are important. I don't know if you like that one. And then investments in like things where we know we can save money. So that move to expand the IRS, I thought that was a good one because it's a way to raise money for the federal government. Investments in things like providing contraception to people.
But expanding the IRS is a way to raise money for the government?
Yeah, my understanding is that the IRS knows that there's a lot of money out there, but they don't have the agents to work all the files. So expanding the IRS is one of the few ways where the government can increase its expenditure on some government employees, but raise more money for the government.
But you did see that was going to cost the little guy more because it's the little guys that they go after more. Like expanding their right now they're devoting their resources more towards the big guys because they know that's got the value added right there. They expand their agency, then they can go after the little guys, the guys that get taken out by a pothole.
No. When you're a little guy, your taxes are like the last thing that you're worried about, in my personal opinion, generally speaking.
Well, if you look at you can look at all the advertising for, hey, if you're in debt and you owe the IRS, we will help you. The advertising says there are a lot of people who need to avail themselves of that service.
Sure, and also H&R Block will charge you $200 to fill out like your W-2s. I mean, people can advertise for certain things. I'm just saying that I don't think that the IRS is like targeting poor people now. I don't think that's true. I know some people were worried because like there are certain apps like Venmo and Cash App that might have been flying under the radar. I don't think they issue. I don't know if they issue 1099Ks like PayPal does, but like maybe for things like that. But for the most part, expanding the IRS should help them go after the money that they know is out there. I don't think they're targeting poor people. If you want to talk about targeting poor people, I do agree that that's not a good thing. However, pretty sure it was conservatives that pushed for if you get the earned income tax credit, EITC, I believe that there is a mandatory like 10% audit on those people as a contingency to make sure that they're not scamming the government or something with their taxes. So I would agree that that's a waste of money in terms of where the IRS is focusing on, just because of that mandatory audit rate. But aside from that, I don't think expanding the IRS is them just going after little guys, because I don't think you raise very much money doing that. If you earn 30 or 40,000 a year, I don't even know what the average federal tax liability is for somebody like that. It's probably pretty low.
Very low.
If not
Very,
nothing.
very
low.
It might be nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Below 10% for sure.
mhm.
I
Yeah,
suppose
for
it
sure.
depends on how you define the little guy.
Well,
That's what I was just
how
gonna
are we
ask.
defining
Where-
little guy?
that's what I was just gonna
Before I got into streaming, I did carpet cleaning, which sucked balls. So for me, little guy is like 24, 30,000 a year. that's little guy for me. If you guys are thinking like 80, 90, 100,000 a year is little guy.
Do you know
that's
what percentage of America makes more than 100 grand?
more. I want to say 3%.
Close.
What is it?
What do you know what it is?
I don't know.
You know the number?
20%.
15%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it 15%?
15% makes more than six
Is
figures.
that, hold on. Is that 15% of earners or 15% of households?
That's a good caveat right there. I think it is earners.
Okay.
But
So I want to
'cause,
say I
yeah,
looked up at one point, like, what do you need to be like the top 1% earner? And I think it's like 300K.
it's like 450. I would
Maybe it's
say
four-
something
okay.
in that regard.
All right.
But
15% of this country making over 15% of
100,000.
workers. That sounds
I
like a
don't
lot
think that's
to me.
right.
There's a lot of wealth in this nation.
Or it's just not a lot of money anymore, as it used to
And,
be. You know,
yeah.
where maybe 100,000 is not a lot of money
It's
today.
probably
It
like
used to be a
household
big
income.
deal in the 80s and
I
the
thought it was
90s. But
more.
Destiny, question for you: how much of what you're doing is you're toying and trolling with people, where you're just kind of like a way of getting under people's skins to get attention and get eyeballs, and then constantly changing and evolving, where you're not letting your audience guess who you are or put you in a box, because that is a method of building a brand for yourself. How much of it is that versus how much of it is I'm just changing and I'm sharing what my opinions are today?
I'm pretty authentic. I don't know if this is true, but I might have more broadcasted content than like any other person alive right now. So like my whole like journey, because I think I was the first person to quit their job and do streaming full time in 2010, and I've been streaming probably 7 hours a day on average for probably the last like 12 years. So I mean, like you can see all of my growth. I don't think I could fake a character or be like a provocateur for that extended of a period of time. So yeah, I would say there's a lot of like natural evolution of my political beliefs over time.
Got it.
But like when you do, you've seen the thing where he says like, I believe Joe Biden is doing a great job or one of the greatest presidents.
Yeah, that only sounds like
Prove
a troll
me
if you're a
wrong.
Republican. Okay,
Right. Exactly.
I
Well,
think Joe Biden's doing a great job.
well, yeah. Well, let's discuss that. Well, you know, like I actually generally do believe that you're authentic. We've done an interview before. We've done a 2-hour.
The only thing
Mar-
I won't own all
Yeah.
the time is I can get a little wild on Twitter. Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
Well, being wild on Twitter is actually encouraged these days.
Okay.
But I'm bringing that up because I think a part of what Tate does is trolling and to get under people's skins, and I think does a great job at it. I think Jake Paul does the same thing. I think Shapiro does the same thing.
Yeah.
I think a part of what we do is the same thing. So
He used
that's
the
why.
word provocateur. I think that's a very appropriate word.
But a word we use today is, you know, you hear the word troll more. Like you saw what he did to Greta yesterday. Did you guys see the back and forth yesterday?
With Greta.
Did you
Van
see what happened
Susteren?
with him and Greta yesterday on
Who's
Twitter?
him? Who?
I'm
Who's
sure
him?
you saw that. Okay,
Yeah,
Tate
no.
and Greta. If you want to
Oh,
just
Tate.
click on that. So yesterday,
that Greta.
yeah. So
Thunberg.
yesterday, if you want to get close to that,
Isn't
so
that
Greta
Greta?
says, no, go up a little bit so you don't show what she says first. No. Go down. Just read that part. Yeah. So Andrew Tate says, "Hey, Greta, I have 33 cars. My Bugatti is a 16, 8-liter quad turbo. My 2 Ferrari A12, have 6.5-liter V12. This is just a start. Please provide your email address so I can send you a complete list of my car collection and their respective enormous emissions." Okay. And the picture at the bottom is the picture
going.
of him in the Bugatti. Now look at what Greta does, which is actually pretty impressive how she responds back. She says, "Please do enlighten me. Email me at smalldickenergy@getalife.com." Okay. And then he responds back, and it goes back and forth. And then he does a video and he gets like 30 million views. So there's a model and a madness to this game. I just wonder if that's a part of where you're going, where you're able to do that, versus no, I'm just talking shit, having a good time learning.
I don't know if you can do that model anymore. So the provocateur one. So here's the issue: when people talk about trolling, trolling had a distinctly unique definition like 15 years ago on the internet. When you troll somebody, you're acting in a way that you know is stupid, and everybody else that knows the troll is happening knows that it's stupid, and you do it to get a rise out of somebody, right? You act like an idiot to get a rise out of somebody. The problem is today trolling just means like I don't want to say harassing somebody, but like insulting somebody or attacking somebody. That's like trolling or whatever. But the beliefs are oftentimes real, or even if the people themselves don't have the belief, their fan base has it. I would say the internet has changed substantially over the past like 20 years, and that 15, 20 years ago, it was really funny to talk about like finding people, killing them online, you know, saying a bunch of crazy stuff because like everybody knew it was a joke, and it was just like a bunch of kids and weird old guys or whatever on the internet. It was just like fun and funny. Nowadays it's a lot different because you got people writing manifestos and going to like Buffalo or, you know, Christchurch in New Zealand and like shooting up and killing people based on shit they've read online. So the landscape has changed a lot such that it's hard to go online and be like, oh, I'm just going to troll and say all these things, because there's probably a sizable portion of your audience that's going to end up unironically believing those things. Was it Voltaire that said that like any group that gets its laugh by pretending to be idiots will eventually find themselves in good company? That kind of
I
thing.
don't know. I tend to disagree with the idea that trolls were just idiots. I think that there are a couple different kinds of trolls, but there are people out there who are genuinely like disgruntled and upset with what somebody was doing, and so they took issue with it and they became a troll and they ended up trolling those people. And then your second point is, you know, that there's been a clampdown on what people are allowed to do in terms of trolling other people. And Andrew Tate's a perfect example. They just said, hey, enough of that. And he was, to me, almost an archetypal troll, like, because he just trolled the world. Like, you know, I have 33 cars, come at me, whatever. And this is a great example of it. So they might want to shut that down, and they've tried to shut him down. How did he get back on Twitter? Like
Twitter, I mean, obviously Elon Musk took it over and
yeah,
went back,
so,
but he's still not back on Instagram and some of the other platforms.
But
no,
also, what about? I mean, I think you're talking about like changing the landscape politically or ideologically. Like if you look at the success that Babylon Bee has had over the last handful of years,
they're trolling.
They're trolling, doing
right?
the same thing the Onion has done for decades.
right.
Just took it to a whole different level, though.
Right.
But so the thing, and right now this is like I'm autistically quibbling over definitions, so it doesn't really matter if this is how we use troll now. It's fine. But like trolling in the past would be like would be like I go to a church and I pretend to be religious and I start like speaking in tongues. That would be like
the Borat
trolling.
Approach to trolling.
Yeah,
I mean,
Borat
that's the greatest troll in the
Borat
history of the
is
world.
a great example of a troll, right? But the problem is with, no, I shouldn't say problem. Also, I'm not trying to say anything should be banned or whatever. I'm not trying to say we need to ban this or whatever. But when people troll today, they're not actually trolling. What they're doing is extremely indicative of the underlying beliefs. So like the Andrew Tate stuff, and again, I understand definitions change over time, so we can call it trolling, but there was nothing, like, there wasn't much of a joke to what Andrew Tate was saying. Like a lot of people genuinely feel like, fuck off government. Like, I want to drive my cars.
Borat. Same thing with
No,
Borat.
well,
the reason that Borat resonated is there are a lot of people who felt the same way that he did.
Wait.
That's why it resonated. I mean, resonance is the way something becomes popular. He became popular because it resonated. He didn't become popular because everybody thought this guy's an idiot, and so I'm going to watch more of his idiocy. They thought it was funny because it resonated with, that's what humor is.
Well, it's almost like playing a character to Twix.
No.
I didn't watch any of those.
Okay,
movies.
so Borat was hilarious, and you could kind of call him like the original troll, right? And you didn't watch him because there was validity or like actual truth to what he was saying. You were watching him because he was a total doofus and an idiot and punking other people. So like the definition of a troll almost. Definition. But yeah, I mean, you just loved the fact that he was literally pulling one over very famous people. And it was comical. Nobody knew who he was, and that was the joy of the show. It had nothing to do with, there was like no underlying truth to what he was doing or saying. And I think she's missing what.
I disagree.
Yeah.
expose
To
the idiocy of whoever. And he does a great job of trolling typically the right. I mean, he'll do it to Bernie Sanders and the left as well. Did you see that this isn't Borat, but this is Sacha Baron Cohen's latest escapade, I don't know, 2 years ago? What was it, like Saving America or United States of America? What was the whole thing? I don't know if you could pull it up, Sacha Baron Cohen.
Showtime. He did it with
It was
Showtime.
a whole thing, something about America. Who is
Where he
America?
pretended to be like an Israeli.
He pretended to be an Israeli Mossad gunfighter, and he would go and basically convince, NRA type members that 5-year-olds should be shooting guns.
Yeah.
Or he went in like a boxing ring with like a Republican congressman, and he convinced him to like drop his pants and like attack people with his anus, like stuff that you're like, you can't make this up. He got people to do. And obviously the greatest troll he ever did is Pat's favorite thing in the history of the world, when he got OJ on and pretended that his girlfriend didn't know who OJ was and just was like, you remember OJ? La, 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 la. And like the trolling of this man is so over the top amazing.
So the weird thing is that because there's a resonance with trolls, I struggle with Sacha Baron Cohen. Like personally, I struggle. Some
why?
of it's funny. Yeah. And some of it just makes me really uncomfortable. It just makes me uncomfortable. And I don't.
But that's the point.
Right.
He wants to make you uncomfortable.
That's true. And so, but I'm the type of person who's like, okay, I don't need that. I don't need that discomfort level in my life. So like that last thing that you're talking about that he did, I didn't watch it, even though I heard funny things about it. And some of the things sounded pretty funny.
Yeah.
Like overall. And it's the same thing. It's like who were the guys who played all the pranks and did dangerous things, the Jerky Boys.
It's the best thing in the history of
I know, but that to me, that's
she's
just
talking
a
about
little
Jackass.
Jackass guys, yeah, of course,
yeah. You're going 80s.
Yeah, I'm going 80s. But I think Destiny brought up a
Don't
very
go
good.
80s,
I
man.
think Destiny brought up a really good point. Is that whether it's left or Babylon Bee, Onion, Borat, Jack, who gives a shit? I think trolls, making fun of people, just joking around.
I think
that's part of America.
I think it's healthy.
Humorous, satire, all that.
It's healthy because if you can't laugh at it,
of course,
then you're the one who has the problem.
Here's where I was going with this, though. That's all fun and games. This is what Elon Musk kind of is abiding by. Free speech. I don't care if you're left, right. I don't care if I offend you. All good.
As you don't track his jet.
As long as it doesn't incite violence. Like you brought up school shooters and manifestos in Buffalo. And that's, I think, where the constant slippery slope is constantly trying to be identified, is like what's trolling, what's satire, and what's like, no, we have a problem here that we must address. And that's the problem with online. Now everybody can say some shit, which is fine, but where do you draw the line on this type of stuff?
I don't even care about the indirect incitement to violence. The like people call it stochastic terrorism, is when you're slowly pushing people. I'm not even necessarily worried about that. Like I don't know if there should be rules or legislation or anything. I just wish that people would be more honest. Like it's never just jokes, right? Like the jokes are typically like they resemble some underlying thing that people.
It's funny because
really
it's
feel.
true. That
exactly
the ruin comedy.
Like for the recent like Sacha Baron Cohen stuff, that thing you're talking about, that was funny. If you were like left leaning and you like to shit on conservatives, that's why it was funny, because you got to see their ridiculous like positions on guns and blah 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 blah. If you watch that with a conservative friend, some of them might not find that funny, right?
Like Sam didn't.
Well, I don't know if it's because she didn't watch it or not. Because
I didn't watch it.
All right.
But I'm saying like some conservatives might not find that funny. They might be like, oh, well, I don't, I'm not sure. I just don't get it. I mean,
just like how all conservatives don't find late night TV funny anymore, SNL funny, because it's like,
but that's different because you can only watch so many fucking Trump impersonations before you're like, okay, let's find something else to laugh at.
Yeah, but the whole thing with comedy is misdirection.
A little bit.
And if you already know where the joke is going, like if you watch Jimmy Kimmel and he brings up Trump, it's never going to be like, and then Trump won the lottery and it was great. It was like, and Trump just fell flat on his face and he has a toupee.
Sure.
That's the whole thing with misdirection.
Here's how this whole thing went into 30 minutes. I asked, is Destiny doing this to troll people, to get under people's skins? And then we turned it into a big ass topic. So let's go to.
It's a good.
Is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
I don't. What I'm saying is, I think it's a good thing. I think it's good that he's doing this. I think that is a business model today.
I don't do that.
I think a part of that.
Plausible deniability.
I think a part of whether you know it or not, a part of you is doing it. Whether you're aware of it or not, a part of it is considered trolling and, getting under
You know-
people's skins. It is a business model. Trump did it. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Connor does it.
Yeah.
Jake does it. Dana White does it. You can go to a
I'm-
list of people that can do it.
I'm not strategic enough
Yeah.
to figure that out. However, my views on education have gotten so extreme that I'm probably trolling at this point.
So why don't we get into
because-
that? Let's go into education.
Before we move on, can I
Yeah.
just ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because I must admit, I'm sitting next to one of the bigger, best trolls I know. All right. Because as serious as Pat is, he knows when to poke. Can I give you an example?
Sure.
Like when we had our friend Congressman Joe Walsh here.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say you were trolling him a little bit.
I don't
Were you not?
disagree. No,
Yeah, exactly.
No, I don't. I'm
Right.
I'm not. I think that's it. That is a very necessary skill
I
set.
agree.
We're not knocking trolling. I think it is what the best marketers do to get a
Right.
message out there. Yeah.
I think I agree with you. The only thing I would say to be careful of is because like I do agree that I can be provocative, but there are some people that are provocative for the sake of being provocative, and they don't necessarily believe what they say. So that's like the only difference. So like if you say like, oh, you're a bit of a troll, to some extent I would agree. I can be very aggressive, very provocative, but I'm never just like hanging stuff out there that I don't believe.
You know what I kind of like about today's evolution a talent goes through. When you're talking about 2010, you started doing streaming, all that stuff.
Mhm.
The audience has grown with you for 12 years. Like you're talking about 7 hours a day, whatever, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
So people are also seeing where 30 years ago, we didn't know when somebody was evolving. You just kind of saw the product. Boom, here's who
Yeah.
I am. Like, oh, okay.
Movies,
Just look it up.
TV.
Here's who I'm in. You have to stay in the box. Versus today, you
Yes,
don't
it's
have to
the
stay in the
overnight
box.
success
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Today you can kind of maneuver a little bit and say, look, now I like this, now I like this, and then finally, eventually, so many things you eventually go like, yeah, this is pretty much my
Yeah,
philosophy.
except that
Where I'm
we
at
are
right
living in a soundbite environment
Mhm.
now. Like, and Andrew Tate just said this, right? He said, they take little snippets of what I said. I said it in a long form video. It was part of an evolved train of thought.
Yep.
And that was like the soundbite
Mhm.
that was, trolling maybe, or a little bit provocative to like wake you up. And in fact, I think that trolling is a necessary part of all of this. I don't like the word trolling, because really what you're doing is you're trying to poke holes to see if it's actually of substance, to see if it's true.
now. So you don't think
And
that's
if-
good to do?
I think it's excellent to do.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
it must be done. And the people who want to shut down,
Yeah.
those are the people whose arguments won't stand.
Yeah, I think anytime you're making fun of powerful people, that's a good thing. I think
What-
we need to the challenge is
And the reverse is true, right?
Yeah.
The powerful people who want to shut you down, that's because they're insecure.
yeah, but I think I think the world wants to see what becomes a problem is when SNL only targets one side. That's when it's kind of like,
Fully
you know what?
agree.
So if you do both sides, I'm all in. If you do one side, that's the part where some people are like, if Sacha Baron Cohen did that same thing to both sides of the aisle, I guarantee everybody would go watch it. But when he does it only to one side, some people are like, yeah, you know what? I don't want to see it because you're not doing the hypocrisy on the other side.
See, and I feel like the left has a thin skin.
Everybody's got a thin skin. That's the reality. There are a lot of people that think they don't have a thin skin. As soon as their side starts getting
Yeah. I'm kind of
I
with
think-
you.
I think the
original-
left
original
has
Borat-
a
the
thinner
original
skin
Borat-
these days.
the original Borat did make fun of left-leaning people. There was that whole
Yeah, he did.
conversation with like the feminists and everything.
That's
that he
true.
had. Yeah,
For
there
sure.
were definitely
Well, can I give you one who I
Yeah.
thought was one of the greatest trolls ever, and it's now he's as vanilla as it gets, is Stephen Colbert. When Stephen Colbert did the Colbert Show,
Mhm.
and he portrayed a conservative, right-leaning Trump guy, even in the midst of the Iraq War and Afghanistan, it's like, of course we got to get in there. They've got weapons of mass destruction. And he's like, they did. And he's like, you can't tell me any different. Like the way he was able to troll. And this kind of goes back to my comment about misdirection. You know where Stephen Colbert stands these days. So anytime he does a joke, you know where it's ending.
Mhm.
And I think that's sort of the problem the left has these days, is that we already know where you're going, buddy. And that's the whole premise with comedy and trolling and sarcasm, is that that's what I respect about Andrew Schultz and what we talked about with him.
Bill Burr.
Bill Burr as well, is like he'll go any direction. So you got to stand on
That's
guard.
right. You gotta,
Like, for example, this whole thing you're talking about, the left or the right, who can handle it, who can't take it. One of the greatest roasts of all time is Trump's roast. I don't know if you saw when they roasted Trump, and then,
Yeah.
what Snoop said about Trump. He says, this won't be the first time you got rid of a black man in his house, or you kicked that. I don't know if you
Yeah,
remember that line,
exactly.
what he said.
First time you have
And then guess what? There he's sitting there. He's being trolled by everybody. And guess who's sitting right in front of Trump? His daughter. And his
Oh.
daughter's laughing at the jokes they're saying about his father, about her father. which was kind of great to see. I mean, that show, if
They were
you know,
funny jokes.
a lot of times they say he's got thin skin. I mean, some of it can be credible, but if you got thin skin, I don't see a lot of left sitting there being roasted by, people in the media space. The Republicans,
Okay,
guys like
hold
him.
on. Didn't Trump literally axe the White House correspondent?
No, I'm talking about. I'm talking
did.
about.
Also,
I'm just
is the post was the roast previous to him being a president?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so it's not fair. You can't pull that card.
saying in terms of like who can handle it, levers around. I'm pretty
I
sure
totally
Trump
get that, but
literally killed
the first person you think about when you say he can't handle it, the first person everybody goes to is who? Trump, because he's got thin skin. Everybody's like, oh, he's got thin skin. If you got thin skin, the last thing a thin-skinned person would do is the following. I'll give you a judgment on this here. You can kind of, let's have some banter on this one.
Sure.
So, for example, yesterday Kyle came on the podcast. One of my favorite podcasts of the year. Okay, not because we agreed, but it was interesting to see where he was at, and we had a good
sitting
discussion.
right here, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting right here.
Yeah.
This will be the second most interesting.
Yeah, you're so funny.
Thank you for that.
But we had a good conversation. And by the way, I enjoyed Antonio Brown. And Antonio Brown was full on disrespectful when he was here. He just kind of disrespected the whole audience, us, and it ended up being a very good podcast. But tell me what place Trump wouldn't go to on media where they would trash him. Where would he not go to? Would he not go to CNN? Would he not go to MSNBC? Would he not go to Jimmy Fallon? Would he not go to Jimmy Kimmel? Would he not go to? Would he not? He went everywhere, right? Now, let me flip this on you. How many times have you seen Obama, Clinton, Hillary, any of those guys
Biden
go on Fox ever? How many times? The answer is never, except for once.
Well, that's true. How, do they?
But let me make my point to you. Let me make my point. The point I'm trying to make to you is the following. As much as we can say, whatever we want to say about guys like a Trump or anybody else, if you're willing to go in the den and know they're going to trash you, know they're looking for their moment, agree or disagree, man. That's the last thing you can say is that's a thin-skinned person won't even go in there. So there's a bit of an argument for that. But go ahead.
Also, Bernie will do the same thing.
I think Bernie, that's why I respect Bernie as well.
I don't know if that has to do with Trump being thin-skinned or not. And I think you can make an argument for him being thin-skinned, and that's exactly why he ran to these platforms to air his grievances. But I think, didn't Trump have a pretty unique relationship with the media? Like, for instance, so you asked me that question, like Trump went everywhere, which was true. So I'm trying to think, okay, well, the Democrats then, like, they don't go on Fox News. That's true. But did they go on media much at all when they were in office? Like, was Obama making regular appearances on MSNBC or Fox News?
He was making his rounds and going talking to people that gave softball questions.
He would do late night.
Was this during like campaigning, or was this like when he was in office?
Either way, when he was in office. And by the way, I've watched every single one of Obama's interviews on late night, or he would go on any of this stuff. I liked watching him, but the challenge was when he went on any shows, it was like, so what's your favorite song? It's like, what do you mean, what's your favorite song? Versus Trump would go on as, why are you hiding everything? So, and by the way, so who would be thin-skinned? So here's a question for you. Perfect thing to be thinking about. We'll invite guests to the podcast, okay? Somebody will email us and say, send us a list of questions. Did you do that?
No, should have though. See,
got you. We got you. Thanks, guys.
You got your whole fucking syllabus over here, telling me to show up in fucking business attire at 11 o'clock at night. I don't know a single fucking.
I go, hey, do me a favor. Do the best of your ability to look your best. He's like, I got sweatpants, blue or gray.
Oh, we don't care about that.
That's all I got.
But here's the point. The point is the following.
Best of time.
The point is the following. Here's the point. We'll invite somebody to the podcast, and they'll say, send us a list of questions, okay? And send us a list of topics. And then we'll invite somebody to the podcast, and they'll say, ask me whatever you want to ask me.
Sure.
To me, the person that says, send me the list of questions, has got thin skin and is worried about getting caught. Versus, to me, the guy's like, ask me anything. Trump doesn't say what questions are going to be asking me. He just says, he knows they're going to ask him whatever they're going to be asking him. Versus the left, hey, send me the questions. Matter of fact, send me the debate questions to know what kind of questions. And can you edit this question this way for me, Hillary, so I can be a little bit more? And then writers,
In fact,
can you
Donna
give me?
Brazil got
Yeah,
called out
of course.
for supplying the
During the
questions.
So
debate.
that is the
fans.
ultimate thin skin
That's right.
community. If we want to kind of go there, and by the
Yeah.
way, you can make that argument, but Trump's the one thing about Trump. He likes to go into. He likes going.
I was
into
just going to
lines
say that. I think you can be two things at once. I think Trump can be argumentative, not afraid of a debate, go into the lion's den and like be ready for a fight, a brawl, but he could also be thin-skinned.
Well,
Meaning, like, you can
this
be
is
both.
a good point. It's thin skin does not necessarily mean afraid to fight.
Tissue.
And I think we have to define our terms, right? So thin skin, you get insulted, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to show up
And defend yourself.
But there are plenty of
Right.
people who won't show up. They just won't show up because they
Yeah.
don't have the argument.
That is not
because
Trump's
they
problem.
don't
He
wanna
will
answer
show
it.
up.
That's right.
I mean, it's easy when you
Largely
don't-
because he is thin-skinned.
Yeah. When you show up and you just say a bunch of random shit every time. I mean, I
Right.
don't know if it's as impressive, but
I didn't hear that. Say that again.
well, when you show up and just say random shit every time, because it feels like that's what Trump's MO kind of was. But
got
I
him
don't know.
elected. Got him elected.
say
And
random
it
he
did
almost-
get him elected. That is true.
He got
You
called
don't-
out on all the random quote random stuff.
You
that
know
he
what?
said.
You know what it is like. It's kind of like this. It's kind of like the Republican who goes to a hardcore left school and makes it out. Okay, when you make it out, you've been destroyed by everybody on the left in that school. That your arguments have to be better.
Yeah, but he didn't have any arguments for anything.
No. I what I'm saying to you is no. For him to go to the opposing side, I think that's you're developing muscle when you do that.
That's what hurt their feelings because they loved him.
Oh, he
before
destroyed-
he
yeah, he-
declared for
I
president.
think the part about Trump that is his challenge. Here's the challenge he's got. My opinion, I could be wrong, but I think he wants to fight everybody. And 99% of people are not worth fighting.
Mhm.
And it's just kind of like, what'd you say? What'd you say? Like,
Ugh.
you go to the club with the one friend and he just, what'd you look at me for? He's that guy.
It's the worst guy to hang out with.
go
by
of
the way.
It's
nine-
a great
always
point.
happens
What
when I go to
what
the
he
club.
just tried to do to
Jesse's trying to fight
DeSantis.
everyone.
Too much. 99% of the fights at the club. Listen, people are going to bump into you.
Let's kind of comment on this. Do you think Trump's thin-skinned? I'll give you my take. I do think he's thin-skinned,
Mm-hmm.
and they probably touched on this a little bit. There was a lot going on there
Mm-hmm.
in that discussion, but certainly not afraid to go anywhere. I don't believe he was afraid to go anywhere. I think his people actually prevented him from going to certain places because he would often
He has no couth. He's no.
he would actually sound like a dork sometimes, but he
He
wasn't afraid.
probably forced himself on the show. He probably was not even invited.
No. People wanted to talk to Trump for sure. Just so
Yeah, because they
can-
wanted him to incriminate himself.
Yeah, or him to say like his random quotes.
Right.
But he just because he was that they made that point. Like just because you show up to the fight doesn't mean that you're thin-skinned. Because often,
They're not
Afterward-
mutually exclusive.
yeah, often like afterwards he'd be on Twitter talking this or that, or he would continue on harboring on the discussion or fighting with people that did.
He was the most insecure,
Yeah.
thin-skinned person
Yeah.
ever. Calling him thin-skinned is almost like a compliment at this rate.
Mm.
Okay. He only went on these shows just to probably watch himself later
Mm.
and play it back and say how great he was.
The club.
Yes.
If you what you do, hey, it's like, dude, it's a tight spot. People are
That's
bumping
right.
into each other.
That's
Just
right.
kind of walk through. You almost have to tell them when we make it to the bar, which is only
Yes.
20 yards away. About 9 people are going to bump into you. They're not trying to fight you. They're going to bump into you. It's okay. I think that's his deal.
I
good
think
He
that is
loves a
so
fight.
powerful what you just said. I say this all the time. I go at this point in my life because I went to Florida State. You're talking about steroids, keg parties, and fights and hot chicks. That's Florida State for you. Free tip out there. And I would say this.
That's college.
That's
Okay,
college,
good to
Florida
know.
State.
Duly
You guys
noted.
all know out there. But I say this. I go, if I'm going to fight somebody at this point in my life, I'm going to know them. We're going to have a past. We're going to have a relationship. They're going to do something that screwed me over when I told them not to. I'm like, to Pat's point,
Right,
I'm
the
not
people you don't
fighting
know.
the random dude who
Yeah,
bumped into
Not
me
worth it.
in the bathroom line. And I think to use that metaphor, that's what Trump is doing. It's okay to fight Nancy Pelosi. It's okay to fight Chuck Schumer.
Sure.
But to fight
DeSantis.
Well, no, DeSantis, that's fine too.
Every single
But to fight
person.
every single comment
Yeah.
on Twitter and defend
Let it
yourself
go.
is just
Yeah.
like, dude.
I think
Let
the,
it
the
go.
big issue with that too, and I saw flashes of this during the 2016 primaries, and everybody on the left, probably a lot of people on the right, were waiting for Trump to switch up because there were a couple primaries that he lost where he came on stage and he was actually really gracious. He was like, Ted Cruz ran a great campaign here. You know, you guys won here and that was good. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So he does have a bit of like,
I don't remember any of those.
he
but
did it
okay.
a couple times.
All right.
Because every time it happened, I was like, okay, if this guy wins presidency, at the very least, he's not a
That's
fucking
possible.
idiot. Yeah, he's going to be like,
He's not an idiot.
Remember any of those.
there's a word I'm looking for, showman or something. He's going to be a good sport about it, and everything's going to be okay. But man, it wasn't. And Trump sold himself as a businessman. He acts the least like a businessman I've ever heard in my entire fucking life. Right? If you're a supervisor and your employees fuck up and your manager comes to you, you never blame your employees. It's your responsibility. It's your shift. If you're a manager and the store owner comes to you, you never blame your supervisors. That's your store, right? If you're a store manager and the CEO of the company comes to you, or if Congress goes to the CEO, you're like, oh, well, my employee, right? It's you own it. That's why you get
Such
paid
a
the
good
big bucks,
point.
right?
You say it's on me.
Exactly. And Trump was the
Never did that.
master of passing the buck.
Mhm.
Now, if he wanted to blame the deep state on the Democrat side, even at that, I don't think you should do it because you're the president and it's your job to work through it. And that's what you sold us on. You talked about corporate inversions in Ireland and you talked about bringing people together on things. And you said you were going to do that and he didn't. But the problem is he attacked all of his friends too, right? He attacked Sessions. He attacked his attorney general. He attacked his heads, every nominated head. He's got people in his past cabinet. He's got like every single person. Like if you were on Trump.
Yeah, definitely. It was so.
I
many-
like that we're like rehashing it because a lot of people have forgotten 2016 to date.
Mhm.
So like it's a nice little refresher.
Sure.
I like that.
He certainly attacked everybody.
Everybody.
That's why I don't
He
understand why.
fired everybody.
I don't understand why people
He
would
would
say
always-
that he's such a great leader or such a great
Who said that?
businessman.
People have said that.
Yeah, what do you mean people have said that? Are you kidding me? Half the country says that. I don't understand why they say that. I like to talk to people that actually believe that he's a good leader and have them like
Right. Like how so?
explain that out. Yeah.
Right.
Trump's friends list, you were like 2 weeks away from being on his burn list. And it was like, Jesus,
Yeah.
like, can you not hold a single fucking friend in
It's
any
like he,
place?
it's like he loves the drama. It's like
But
the chick who loves drama, and you're like, I just want to have a nice dinner, but she's
I
on
think-
her phone with
But
all
that's
the
exactly-
I think the bottom line is, and they probably just like don't even want to touch on it, but I'm sure a lot of people may feel this way, is that the reason why he probably fired all his friends or probably got very upset is that it was almost like, you know, if you're not going to stay loyal to me and back me up in my lies or whatever it is, then you're out. And I think he had a lot of people in his pocket and that was it. And that's why they did the things they did. And it's kind of ironic that every person that's turned on, every person that was closest to him turned on him and then wrote a book about it. I mean, Michael Cohen.
Yeah, but he seems like he was a fucking trash bag too, though.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Well, yeah.
That's what he's saying is essentially, speaking of drama, the reason that Biden got elected. I'm not trying to troll you or trigger you, but the reason Biden got elected, at least we thought, was like, can we just calm the temperatures of the
No,
drama
I
and the
don't buy
nonsense? Nobody was like, Biden is the best guy ever. He's been in politics 50
Nobody.
years. Nobody.
Zero people were
Even the
that.
people that voted for him, it was just like, enough with the Trump and the trolling.
Eh.
And that's what got him elected.
Listen, years ago, they would say there would never be a president from New York, New York City, because what New York DNA is like, right? Chris Christie, oh, he's too much. He's too much. He had one of those town hall meetings. I don't know if you remember, like 15 years ago or 12 years ago, and he
Jersey.
put this lady in her place, and he's like, "Well, video went viral." Like, yeah, but that would never work in Alabama. That would never work in Iowa, and that's just not a model. So, if you know George Steinbrenner, if you know New York, if you know Gotti, if you know the people that came out of New York, the athletes, the politicians, the business people, that's New York. It's very normal of a New York. So anybody that lives outside of New York is not used to that. George Steinbrenner fired the head coach, not the head coach, his skipper. What do you want to call him? The head coach,
general manager.
not the general manager. The manager.
Yeah.
He fired and rehired the guy 3 times. He
Right.
did it once on national television. He's like, "You're fired." And he's like, "What are you talking about? You're fired." It's like, "You can't fire me like this." And then brought him back and fired him again. It's a little bit of a New York DNA that the rest of the world is just not used to.
I will
and,
say,
and he tried to bring that to politics.
I
Well, I
disagree.
mean, it obviously worked in some areas and it didn't work in some areas.
it was Billy
Go ahead.
Martin
I
as the coach.
disagree.
you're
Yeah, Billy
talking
Martin
about.
got fired like
back and
3
forth,
times.
back and forth.
Yeah.
I will say this: what people have to give Trump credit for, whether you like him or not, a New York billionaire goes into the deep South in Alabama and he's like, "I'm just like you guys. I'm just an everyday guy. I'm a gun-toting 2A guy, I believe." Like, and these guys, whether you're in Madison, Wisconsin, or Biloxi, Mississippi, or Alabama, or West Virginia, coal mining country, you're like, "That's my guy. Honk, honk with the horn." It's like,
Yeah.
Listen,
that
I
is
think
so
says
not-
more. That says more about Republicans than it does about
well,
Trump,
that
I
too.
think.
But
No,
I don't
it's-
know if that
think
was
it
the
says
brand, though.
more about
how he was
people who
able
feel
to market that.
That wasn't his
disenfranchised.
brand, though. He didn't come and say, "I'm like you."
No, he
say
didn't.
no,
It's
he
true.
says, "I understand you, the
Yeah.
common man."
Yeah,
I'm
well,
for
I love
you.
the
I'm
poorly
for you.
educated.
I'm for you.
I love
I
the
love
poorly
poorly
educated.
educated.
And by the way, I know how you can succeed and due deference. Everyone is poorly educated at this point
Yeah,
because our education system.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. So, current education system. What do you think about the current education system that we have?
That's a really broad question.
Well, you said you like opinions, so go for it. Give us.
So
All
this
right.
is
So let's we're gonna cut it there for tonight, and then
Mhm.
we'll get into the second half of the video.
to the nitty gritty.
Yeah, to later on. But this was mostly just like an introduction to Sam Sorbo, to Destiny. Talked a little bit about trolling. I think trolling is like, if you're gonna be like you just want to be a pain in the butt person. I guess there's those type of trolls out there, but there is like a if you want to be a good marketer for your personal brand or your company, there is like a benefit to a certain what was the word, provocateur, to be a little
Sure.
bit of a provocateur. It gets people clicking on your
Yeah, but are
stuff.
you being truthful to yourself and to your audience?
Yeah, not always.
Right.
And it just depends on how you want to get people's attention.
Hmm.
Anyways, and then they talked about Trump and thin-skinned, and so we didn't comment much on all this, but hopefully we'll have some.
Well,
more
it's so
say.
engaging that you don't want to interrupt. Yeah.
Like they're kind of talking about anything we would kind of talk about, anyways.
Mhm.
All right, so we'll see what the next video or the next second half has for us.